I'm Adam Willems, lead reporter at the Financial Revolutionist.
Hi, I'm Gabriele Columbro, Executive Director of FINOS and General Manager of Linux Foundation Europe.
I'm David Stone. I'm in the office of the CISO here at Google Cloud.
Great to have both of you here.
Hello.
You two have an exciting announcement to unveil to the public. I'm wondering if the two of you could speak more to that.
Absolutely, I'll take the lead. So earlier this year, we announced a project called Common Cloud Controls. This is an open standard that was originally brought to FINOS from Citi, one of our platinum members. We started in August working on it, and since then we already put together over 20 firms, some of the largest financial institutions in the world, cloud service providers like Google, and several technology vendors who are participating in building an open standard for harmonizing really cybersecurity controls and potentially addressing cloud concentration. And so we are announcing today that the project is becoming fully open source and is welcoming industry broad participation. So we're really excited.
That's big news. I'm wondering what the sort of ideological underpinning is behind making it open source versus something proprietary.
Well, first of all, I'm biased. We're the Fintech Open Source Foundation, so that's literally what we do. But beside the bias,
Yes.
Look, this is both cybersecurity, as you've seen from the sort of MRAs, matter requiring attention, coming down on financial institutions for the last year or two around cloud and cybersecurity, as well as cloud concentrations. Honestly, these are problems that no single financial institution, so no single vendor can solve on their own. And then if you overlay that, the fact that, regulators like transparency, I think that gives a really strong case for bringing together all the different parties into a, collaborative space, which is open, and that differentiates us from many of the other sort of attempts that happened in the industry before. This allows really IP to flow freely and allows sort of the largest names in the industry to contribute in a way that actually will lift the whole industry. There are a lot of institutions that don't have large technology teams. Think about community banks, think about even the buy side.
Right.
And so we think this has a really, a shot at solving this widespread problem in the industry.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, sort of from Google's perspective, in addition to cloud computing capabilities, how else you're contributing to the partnership?
Yeah, so first off, we're really excited about it. Couldn't be more excited. It really fits into our overall goal of protecting the entire ecosystem. We believe in a shared fate model, much like the open source community, and really around security in whole. If we can democratize this, get it out to the industry, and really have the financial industry contribute, as well as the major players and the vendors in the space, and agree to what cybersecurity should look like in the cloud and all the various different aspects of it, it really goes to strengthen the entire ecosystem. And that's something that here at Google Cloud, and I'm in the office of the CISO, so we work with financials on a day in and day out basis. I'm a former and recovering CISO from wholesale and enterprise payment from a large financial. So if I had had this would have been helpful to talk to the regulators, to talk to my internal, to really drive that conversation forward and protecting the ecosystem. So from our perspective, we couldn't be more excited about it and joining the initiative to really open source and democratize how do you do cloud security well. And then especially to those smaller institutions that may not have teams of thousands and thousands of cybersecurity engineers that can help with this, giving them that leg up in this is also, it's a team sport when we get into cybersecurity for sure.
Right. So it sounds like in addition to the cloud computing capabilities, there's quite a bit of knowledge transfer sort of from Google on these other things.
Absolutely. And it really fits to overall Google strategy. We're helping out in the open source community around securing open source packages. Here in the cloud space, we want to open source that knowledge as well. So it really will drive the community adoption and security really to bring up the ecosystem. So that's what we're interested in.
Right.
Google has been a leader in, as you know, the FINOS is part of the Linux Foundation, which is the largest sort of shared technology investment in the world. And one of our sister foundations that David was hinting to is the Open Source Security Foundation. And Google has been very much the leader. I think not just in terms of, the vision that you guys have to support the ecosystem at large, but really on the fact that, look, the financial system amongst many is the most interconnected one that we have. And so, we're only going to be as secure as the sort of least secure part of this ecosystem, and so it makes a lot of sense to offer an open standard that everyone can use.
Right. And a question for both of you is what the interfacing has been like with the regulators when it comes to both launching this partnership and generally sort of ensuring, like you said, it's team sport and this shared fate component to the industry. So, sort of a balance between the private sector helping sort of lead the charge while also educating often regulators on what you're doing and what should be
I'll take this first, but
Sure.
very curious of David's perspective. Look, one of the key initiatives of FINOS and where we see the most potential is what we call open regtech. And it's really the idea of, first and foremost, mutualize regulatory implementation costs. Secondly, hopefully mutualizing regulatory interpretation cost. And of course, there's a lot of talk about how AI would help that. But ultimately, in the long run, hopefully before my, grandkids grow old, engaging regulators themselves in the open collaborative process. And so, sort of this introduction had just to say that there is a broad spectrum of expertise when it comes to regulator and their perception of open source. You know, they made a lot of sort of inroads in the last few years, but certainly, it is a concept that is generally thought about as primarily a technology collaboration pattern rather than sort of a way to engage the different constituents of the industry. And so our job here is to really start by sort of self-organizing across the different constituents and then engage regulators. The initial conversations that we've had, both directly as FINOS and through our sort of members, have been very positive. There's been conversations with regulators globally in Asia, in the UK, in the US, and I think they definitely appreciate the industry sort of jumping on this. Again, if you think about it, they have come down with MRAs for the last 2 years, so they're really asking the industry to stop whatever you're doing and take action on this. And so I think this sends a really strong signal. We hope that being open, this could become a sort of regulatory Rosetta Stone, if that makes sense, that then could help not only them better understanding the problem, there's certainly a talent gap sometimes when it comes to regulators versus regulated entities, but also hopefully harmonizing across the industry. One of the things that we're doing is actually responding to an RFI that the White House put out very timely, a couple of weeks after we launched the project, that is actually asking input as to how they harmonize cybersecurity controls across the United States. And so, we think we have we're pretty well positioned since we already have a project started in this area.
Yes.
Absolutely, well said. I think that really it's about driving that ecosystem. And part of the ecosystem is, of course, the regulatory landscape within financial services. With so many regulators and so many bodies, this is really, I think, helpful in a Rosetta Stone type of way, right? Where we can actually come out with prescriptive kind of should we configure it, but also the important piece of why, right? What threats is it mitigating against? And why is it important that the financial services do it? So it comes out with those pieces so that the regulatory can contribute as well and can also observe and say, hey, we think you should consider this or this. Absolutely, it's a dialogue, right, between all of those players and the interplay between different regulators, first, second, and third line as well. We want to get that input from the various FSIs as well and from the different folks, both large and small, right? And that's really one of the great things about open source is it's contributed by all. So we're looking forward to that aspect of it.
Totally. And a question for both of you again is how you're defining success for this partnership or what the KPIs are.
Oh, do you wanna start from your side as a maintainer, and then I'll tell you mine?
Sure. I think success looks to me is an industry standard or an adoption of a common set of Rosetta Stone, if you will, of what do we need to do to be secure. Because at the end of the day, every financial comes in and says, I'd love to move to the cloud. We really need to move our critical workloads over there because of all of the business reasons, including AI that's coming along. How do we adopt and maintain and grow our businesses? This really gives them a way to measure themselves of, okay, are we meeting that Rosetta Stone, the basics that we need to from a security perspective, and mapping it back to the threats that it's mitigating against from a financial services perspective. And then the adoption of that and able to speak in a common language across all the financial services is going to be huge in that aspect. And I think that that is something that is a huge KPI, at least for us, and how we measure success. If we get everyone talking the same language, implementing controls in a similar way, and talking about the threats that it actually mitigates to help protect the financial services institutions, I think that will be a huge success moving forward. And across community banks, large banks, it doesn't matter, the security engineers, the teams you're talking to, they'll be able to talk in a common language, which open source allows us to do.
Well, I think, first of all, well said. And I think it really depends who you ask, meaning, there's so many different constituencies in this project that, I think the beauty of open source is being sort of a positive sum game where, each of the constituencies, it's selfish and is participating for their own sort of goals, but ultimately what comes out through open source is something that lifts the whole industry, as we said before. And so I think, look, I'll start from, I would say, from a regulator perspective. I think, success is, a lower number of security issues when banks go into cloud. And I think, this is a longer term goal because it takes us developing the standard, getting it adopted, and ultimately then mitigating the issues that we were perceiving in the first place. But that ultimately is what we're trying to achieve, securing the whole industry better. And so that's what I think. If I put my regulator hat on, if I was a regulator, I would probably assume that that's the goal. From a financial institution perspective, I would say that, reducing the amount of fines and really the cost of implementing regulation globally in a regulatory landscape that is very fragmented, that is very regional, that oftentimes, because of regulators tend to be sometimes behind in terms of the sort of innovation and sort of even deep understanding of the issues here. And in fact, I think, sort of little parenthesis here, I really love the fact what I think CCC, Common Cloud Controls, introduces with respect to previous attempts at this problem is really what David was hinting to. It's not just about mapping existing regulations into a technology spec. It's about looking at what are you trying to achieve? What are the threats that, can be, what are the threats and threat vectors that can be used to attack a financial system or a financial cloud deployments? And what are the mitigations that you can apply to it? And therefore then base the controls on this framework, and ultimately, hopefully, regulations are going to sort of look at this framework as a Rosetta Stone. It's not really just about blindly sort of interpreting a piece of sometimes unstructured text or at times contradictory regulations on a global basis. And then, just to conclude, from a FINOS standpoint, I would see success as global industry adoption, and whether that means financial institutions. Certainly, it's we're very well positioned with almost 80 members across some of the largest financial institutions in the world. I would say having the 3 major cloud service providers would be another major KPI for us, and we are, Google certainly has taken a strong lead here, but we are, of course, in active conversations with others because, if you think about it, this is about common cloud controls, and so it's really about securing, first and foremost, the common cloud services that exist across the hyperscalers and, of course, the other cloud service providers.
Yeah, just to add on to that too, great, well said. I think that cloud really gives a lot of financial services a great opportunity to up-level their game with secure by design features and security features that they would not have locally most of the time on premise.
Yep.
So really this is the last mile of that. It's how do you, by that secure by design, how do you leverage that to bring your entire security posture up and really benefit from all the great security features the cloud can bring you and do it in a safe way. We already have secure defaults. How do you leverage those to then bring that whole ecosystem up? So I think it provides a huge opportunity for those financial services to up-level that cybersecurity game. And really even some large players, right? Those capabilities that they don't have on-prem, leverage those in a safe and secure manner. So absolutely agree. If we can get worldwide adoption, absolutely.
Off we go.
Off we go.
Well, thank you, both of you. Looking forward to seeing how it develops over time.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks.